Does life seem unfair? Are you pissed off? Would it just be better if everything was fair and you always got your way and things always worked out perfectly? Well, you're in luck because today's episode, we're going to talk about why life is always unfair and what to do about it. This is the Existential Stoic Podcast. I'm Randy. That's Danny. What's going on, Danny?
What's up, Randy? You know what's funny? I was laughing because when you said that, I love how usually when people say something is unfair, they mean it's not going their way. And I
Yeah.
find that funny because rarely do people mean fair in the sense of equality or everybody getting the same. They just mean that it's not going the way they want it to go. Which is
I'm
like
not getting what I
which
want. That's not fair.
is like the
I should
definition of unfair.
I should get what I want all the time.
At
That's
all
fair.
times. It's so funny. Yeah, when you think about it. It really is funny how we kind of use these words as
Hmm.
in a objective sense, but they're really not. It's so subjective.
Yeah, absolutely. And plus, like I say something's fair and you say something's fair, and we mean completely different things.
Yeah. It's one of the hardest things, right? Is and you see this, it's funny, when I used to teach biomedical ethics, we talk about issues like abortion and stuff, right? Like these hotly debated social issues. And one thing that's really interesting is if you look at the popular discussion about it, in politics and stuff, both sides, they're not even talking to each other. They're using totally different meanings for terms. So it's like they're having this debate that's just kind of words going by. They're not even agreeing on it. And I think that's interesting too. Like if we don't agree on the basic terms that we're using, we're not gonna be talking about the same thing at all.
Yeah, that's not fair.
Yeah, it's not fair. It's just not fair.
Well, like here's another thing. It's like so I mean, whenever I hear somebody say like that's not fair, it sounds like a child.
Yes.
It's like, yeah, so like that's not fair. But also it's like I always remind myself, I'm like, this whole world, universe, whatever, is it doesn't care.
No.
Like it doesn't care about you. And nobody else cares about you. Like
Nope.
it's a crazy thing. Like I remember I used to listen to a whole bunch of success stuff, and it's like nobody wants you to be successful. Nobody cares. Not
Nope.
even your mom. She doesn't want you to be successful because she's afraid if you're successful, you'll stop calling her. And it's like life isn't fair and
Yeah.
nobody cares. Yeah.
Yeah. It is funny. It is true though. And and it's not fair too because no matter what you do, no matter what you get in this world, we all die, right? It's the great equalizer, and nothing goes with us afterwards. So it's kind of funny when you think about it that way too, the amount of the way people will sacrifice so much for this stuff and then never even enjoy it too, right? Yeah.
Well, they said, yeah, getting it is half the battle. The other half is enjoying it. And that could be harder because like the type of person you have to become to get this stuff, it almost becomes very, very hard to enjoy it afterwards because you basically just become an addict of like getting. Like
Yeah.
I've met a whole bunch of people who were very, very quote unquote successful in producing money and things and stuff like that, but they could never settle down. They could barely even sleep.
Yeah, well think about it, right? Because it's the same as getting addicted to casinos or games, right? There's this high you're getting, there's something you're getting from that success, that achievement. And they're just running with that. And it's like, if that's your motivation, you're not gonna know how to stop and enjoy it because that high won't be there, right? You're not gonna be getting that feeling anymore of winning, of whatever it is, right? Whatever that feeling is, you're not gonna get. So yeah, you're not gonna be able to use it. It's
Yeah.
unfair.
Yeah, it's not fair. I kind of look like when I try and think of a fair place, I think of like the Soviet Union. You know, like they tried to make that be fair. Like everybody has the same stuff, everybody except for,
Well, it was kind
the
of that was kind
the
of like
rich
a
people.
yeah,
A bad example.
oligarchical bureaucrat. Yeah. But I mean, yeah, so you're in the right ballpark, I guess. Like it would be like communism kind of like genuine communism or socialism would be more or less fair if
Yeah,
that
the
actually happened
ideal.
anywhere.
The
Yeah.
ideal, if it could actually happen. But then again, could it be fair? Like if everybody gets the same stuff, what happens if somebody uh, enjoys it more than another person? That's not fair. You're not allowed to enjoy it that
Yeah, do
much.
that. What if you
Yeah.
really like tan? Right? That's your
Yeah.
favorite color. You're just like,
Yeah.
this is the best.
Huzzah.
Huzzah. Yeah, it is
Yeah.
interesting. I mean, well, that's always, it's funny. There's been a lot of philosophers who talked about like the idea of justice and fairness. And like John Rawls is a very famous political philosopher talked about it. And like he had, you know, he thought we should all have, his idea was like, it was equal opportunities. Like we should all have the same, lives are going to be different. Like the way we live our lives are going to be different because of the choices we make. So there's going to be, he thought there should be naturally some inequality in the sense of like possession, stuff like that. But what mattered was that we all had the equality of opportunity. So in other words, like everybody had like, an equivalent education, equivalent chances to make choices to do the things they wanted to do, and then their own life choices would lead to differences, right? And I thought that was an interesting way to try to handle that issue of fairness because it's like there's always going to be disparity, right? There's always going to be differences in what we have. And I think it feels so unfair now, maybe because we're so aware of it in ways that we just never were. Like, well, I should say also, and the
Just 24/7. We're
yeah,
aware of it.
24/7 we're aware of it. The income gap's getting way, way more severe as well, which doesn't help, obviously. But like, you know, we're just always aware of it. I mean, how much crap on YouTube is there of like,
I
let's tour this
wonder,
$800 million house and
yeah, but
bed
I
this
wonder about this income gap because you think back to the time of kings and stuff like that. I mean, the income gap back then was enormous. There was kings who literally had all the money. They had the knights and like the dukes who kind of had a little bit less money, and then everybody else was just dirt poor.
Yeah.
But
I mean,
there was no Twitter with people like complaining about it all the time.
well, yeah, and there wasn't, the king didn't constantly have post pictures of him like on his Ferrari and stuff. That
Could you imagine the
would be
king on
funny.
his jet skis? Like, yeah,
Life's awesome. Yeah. No, I mean, there's always been disparity, but I think that is one of the hard things is that we're so aware of it now. It's just thrown in our faces all the time.
well,
And,
but we also idolize it. Sorry,
well,
go
no, I was going to
continue, and
say,
then I'll say it.
no, I think you're right, though, because coupled with that, I was going to say is this idea that we're failing if we don't have that,
Mhm.
which is, I think, a big part of the problem. Okay.
Bingo. We idolize it. We like literally
Mhm.
pray at the altar of things and riches and stuff like that. And it's one of those things. We were talking about this in the last episode, like the dichotomy of control. You have control over your beliefs, decisions, actions, that type of stuff, and your attention, where you put your attention. Like a while back, I stopped really caring about riches because I met the dude who I thought was one of the richest people in the world. And this is like 20 years ago. He was worth $10 million. And to me, this was and I was a $250,000 in debt from student loans.
So a
And so
little bit of a
like
difference.
so a little bit of a difference. This dude was like the richest person that I could conceive of. And he must clearly have all the answers and life must be awesome for him. And just by chance, I ran into him and I was like, dude, what's it feel like to be rich? And he's like, it feels the same as it does to be broke. And
Yeah.
it literally broke my brain because I could not fathom how you could be that rich and feel the same as someone who is broke.
Well,
And so, yeah. So at
no,
that point, I was just like, forget it.
it's a good
If it
example.
doesn't work, it doesn't work.
Yeah, I mean that's a good example too of like we imagine money's going to solve everything and it doesn't. I remember when I went to undergrad, I had a friend who his parents were super super wealthy, like ridiculously wealthy, very famous person, and I knew his son. I was friends with him, and he had his own place at school, like he lived off campus, an apartment, very nice. He had like a credit card. He could just spend whatever he wanted. Basically get whatever, and his parents just paid it off. And he was not happy. He had tons of problems. It's like so like that stuff. Yeah, like he could get anything he wanted at any moment. That was true, but like that wasn't what he needed. And I think that's the interesting thing when you think about it, we think this thing's going to solve everything, but it just doesn't. But it's because we're told that too all the time. We're told the story of what life should look like, and it's ridiculous.
By
To
the
even
people
think,
who make the things and who make
yeah,
money off of them. Yeah,
exactly. It's kind of
I
insane.
know. That's not fair.
It is not fair. It's not.
It's not fair. So the government should do that stuff. It's not fair that they
It's
can do
not
that.
fair. It is.
Yeah.
It is interesting that idea though, because like I don't think was there ever a time. I mean, whatever the hell fair means, but was there ever a time where things were fair? Like,
Well, here's what I was thinking of because we were talking about fairness, and I was like, here's really what fairness is. You were talking about the philosopher who had his theory of fairness, and I was like, here's the real theory of fairness. You're born and you die.
Yeah,
That's fair.
yeah,
That's it.
yep. You
You
get
know?
one chance. This is it. You get this time.
Yeah. Like, and guess what? If you're not born, that's still fair.
Yeah.
Because at
And
least then you don't have to die and deal with all the suffering that life entails.
do you know what's funny too? Because I wonder how many times do people that have like the ultra wealthy come across somebody who's like really poor but really happy and like, that's not fair. I have everything. I should
All
be
the time.
happy. Yeah, dude.
That's not fair. Yeah.
And I think that's
Wipe that
it's
smile off your face.
it should be mine. I'll pay you
Yeah.
for it. Yeah, it's just funny because like, we and it's like this emphasis we put on money, we fail to see so many other things that are potential ways of life and like
Yeah.
happiness. Like it's
Well,
this
you see all those rich people from California and wherever going to India and like sitting by the side of these enlightened mystics wearing essentially a diaper, and
yeah.
that's all their possessions, and like trying to find the meaning of life and happiness and all of that.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy because we can make of this life whatever we want. And like you're right. I think we were born, we have this life, then we die. That is basically fair, right? Nobody makes it. We don't know when it's going to happen. And it's interesting that like we don't have to do the things that we're told to do. We could do things differently. I think that realization can help a lot with that sense of unfairness. Because then you realize it's
Mhm.
just kind of up to you. There's nobody's going to live your life for you. Nobody's going to fix your problems. Nobody cares.
Well, okay, yeah, awesome transition because the last part is and what to do about it. So
Yeah.
like, yeah, it's up to you to choose what to focus on, and I think that's a really important thing. Is like because no matter what you do, like if you look at your own life, you probably do a whole bunch of different stuff. Like you participate in these different activities. You may be in school, you may be studying stuff, and some stuff you're better at, some stuff you're worse at. That's just the way that it is. You can't be like an expert at everything. But that's not fair.
It's not
And
fair.
yeah, but it's like it's kind of choosing what is actually important to you, and then also choosing that, like, hey, you know what? If I'm not amazing at it, it still doesn't matter. Like I have had that. I had the hardest time with that for such a long time, where like I was
Well,
like, if
yeah,
I do
dude.
something, I have to be really, really good at it, or else I just like
I'm a
I'm just
failure,
gonna be
right?
miserable.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like it's okay to do stuff and suck at it. Like I remember I picked up dancing for a while, like salsa, bachata, kizomba, and it was just like something that some of my friends did, and I wasn't very enthusiastic about it. I didn't really care, but like other people, that was their thing. And like they would
Uh,
go there and they would be like, "How come you're not like practicing and stuff and improving?" And I was just like, I just don't care. Like I'm doing it because I can hang out with my friends, but like
yeah.
it's just not important. It doesn't even rank on like the top five or top 10 things. I'm just doing it for whatever. But
You're doing
it
it for
was
the
kind of
social
a
activity, not for but recognizing that's important too, right? Because then you can enjoy it in a different way. You don't have to
mhm.
be good at it. You're there for the community, the experience, other people hanging out, not the dance. It's like, yeah,
Yeah, and it was cool. And like it was funny because like I felt the disapproval from them that they were like, how could you do something and not be the best possible version of
yeah.
yourself? And like, but at the same time, it was happiness in myself because I was like, I don't care.
You don't need to do
Yeah,
this. Yeah, who cares?
yeah.
It's funny. I think that's one of the things too, of like looking back to like where these feelings come from. Because I think a lot of people, I know like for myself, right? Those expectations placed on you when you're young and stuff, or that you pick up,
Mm.
and I think that can be a really, really terrible source of these kinds of notions of unfairness and like feeling like a failure and all that
Dude, the
stuff.
all or nothing thinking,
Yeah,
like and perfectionism. It's like
yeah,
either you get an A or you're a failure. You
yeah.
know, it's like
Oh, dude.
yeah.
Oh my God. And it's gotten, and you know what's crazy? I saw that all the time in the colleges, and the kids have gotten, I thought they have gotten worse too over the years. They're like, you
Hmm.
know, they get a B, like a B plus, and they're like just destroyed. And it's like, dude, it's a good grade. You need improvement. You're not going to be an expert at this the second you do something. Like that's ridiculous to think that.
Yeah, yeah,
But it's like idea of like, yeah, it's like you said, it's got to be all or nothing, or it's not worth it at all. And that's
yeah.
insane. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, our favorite whipping boy, the social media, but
Yeah.
that's to blame. Like I was talking with someone a while ago who he has he has a job that like it doesn't pay very well. He's he's amazing at his job, but it doesn't pay very well. And he's just worked like a dog. And he watches this stuff on YouTube where these people go out into the woods and like basically they just live off of nothing. They have like a
Oh, yeah,
hatchet, you
yeah,
know?
yeah.
And he's like so jealous. He's like, how come they get to it's not fair.
It's
And
like
I was like, dude, you could literally go and do that.
that
Like
is
all
easy.
you need
That's
to do is buy a hatchet and just get to the woods. You could go do that.
maybe
But
learn a
it's
few
just like
things first, just so you don't die instantly. But
I
yeah,
know.
like yeah,
I know, but like but what in talking with him, he has this whole concept of perfectionism. He's like, no, before I do that, I would need to learn all of this stuff and I would need to get all this gear and I need to do all this stuff and all that stuff. And it's just like the concept of perfectionism that you get from this produced content all over the place makes you think that you're completely inept and unable to do anything.
and what you don't see too, and that's the funny thing, what you don't see when you're watching this stuff. And I don't understand, like people don't realize that like the people that make that content, like if they're trying to pretend they're wealthy, they're renting crap. They're giving you because they know that the world you're seeing of them is only on that screen and it's manipulated, curated, and it's
Well,
contrived.
dude, the first ever video, no, the first ever YouTube ads, Ty Lopez, where he was in in his garage with his car. Hi, I'm Ty Lopez. This is my garage, and this is my car, and these are my books. Whatever. He sold whatever on there, but
Yeah.
like basically he rented a Lamborghini to have that in his car or in his garage, so it looked like he was successful. He was
Yeah.
just selling stuff before he had anything,
Yeah.
and yeah, all of it. It's
But I think
fake.
that's the trap also of like this type of digital media is it's created. Everybody, you can edit it, you can manipulate it, you can make it look better than it is, right? And I think and everybody does that to some extent, right? Make their lives look better and stuff on social media, whatever, what they want it to look like. And I think it's easy to fall into thinking that they have that stuff, right? That these people are always happy, that they always have this, and it's like, they're playing on your emotions because that sells.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what else to do about it? Life isn't fair. What to do about it? Oh, just recognizing that it's not going to be fair.
Yeah. I think that's the best one.
It's cool because we're all going to die. It's not going to be, it's only not going to be fair until you die, and then that's it.
I always loved Camus and stuff because like the existentialists because they sound so negative at first, like like they're most of them are atheists. They think we're alive, we're gonna die, nothing after that, and it kind of depresses people. But at the same time, there's the flip side of that, which is well, if that's the case, there is no absolute meaning, there is no absolutes, nothing matters except the meaning that we make, right? The meaning that we create, and so that means you can do anything. Like you want to live in the woods, go live in the woods. I think one of the biggest mistakes we make with that, like perfectionism too, is it holds us from doing things that we want to do. And
Mhm.
we think we have to have all this, like your friend, right? You have to have all this preparation. You have to get all this stuff first. It's like you can just start doing it too. And that's gonna get you, one, you'll know if you actually like it, one, and two, that'll get you there, right? And you learn as you go. But it's this, we hold ourselves back also from doing things we might want to do. We lie, tell ourselves that we can't do it, and then we don't ever do things that like matter to us.
Yeah. Well, it's scary because
Yeah.
you think you might make a mistake, might mess up, might screw up this perfect track record you have of doing nothing.
Yeah, right.
And
And it's scary
yeah.
going against the grain of like what other people think is valuable, worthwhile,
Mm.
right? All those expectations, all those norms around us, those values. It's hard to be on your own. It is. It's scary because nobody's going to
Mhm.
understand why you're doing things. They're not going to understand your reasons, but it's your life, right?
It's not fair.
It isn't fair.
Yeah. I think it was in one of these feeling good books where he talks about like it's a very common phenomena for people who are successful to have this fear of losing it all and being destitute and having to be like live on the street and have their friends make fun of them or like their business colleagues make fun of them that they've lost it all. And that's something that like I think about too all the time because it's just I don't know, it's just like one of those fears that kind of stops me from time to time from doing stuff because I'm like, what happens if I screw it up and I lose all the stuff that I've worked for? And I remember I think it was in the 4 Hour Work Week, Tim Ferriss was talking about he's like, one day a year or something, go and do the thing that you fear. And he was talking about like go live out on the street or something like that. I think he was actually the first time that Stoic principles were probably talked about in popular books was in that book where he talked about this Stoic concept of going to do that. But uh, it kind of helps you address the fear and recognizing that like, hey, can handle it.
We can endure way more than you think. It's kind of crazy. And there's always opportunities. The problem is we just have to act, right? And I think that's where that feeling of like it's not fair, I think a lot of times too, is motivated from that like you you don't you're stalling yourself from taking action for some reason. You don't really want to do that. You just want things to be different so that you have stuff without doing anything. And it's like it's not how life is.
Well, like
Life.
you can look at it and we can examine the cognitive distortions in the thought it's not fair. So
Yeah.
it's definitely got all or nothing thinking in there because it's like either 100% fair or 100% not fair.
Yeah.
It's got overgeneralization in there because, one small event in your life makes this whole thing not fair, or just because it wasn't fair one time, it's not fair all the time. Should statements like things should be fair.
Yeah.
You
Right.
know?
Things should be this way. I should have that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's kind of
There's a whole
crazy when
bunch
you
of
think about it.
distortions. Hmm.
It's amazing how much our that's the crazy part, and that's what I've always loved about philosophy is it's like you don't realize how much it's just the way you're thinking that is causing all these problems and making it, causing you to live a life you don't even want to live. That's the crazy part. And we've done it, I mean, everybody's pretty much guilty of it. And it's not necessarily like anyone's fault. It's just the way the world is, right? And the way we are. We're,
And it's hard because the world's so complicated and life is so complicated and it's not fair that
it's not
you
fair.
can't
Yeah.
but like you can't I mean it took I think it takes getting older to recognize you can't have everything. Like it's not it will never you'll never get to a point where everything's working out perfectly. You're always going to have to make
Yeah.
compromises. Some stuff will be good, other stuff won't be good, and it's not fair and suck it up and move on with your life.
Yeah. I mean, I always try to tell myself too, it's like things might not seem fair or whatever, but you can make it better, right? You have the power yourself to do something. So
Mm,
focus on that instead of focusing on what might appear to be unfair or what might be unjust or
that's a
whatever
good
it is.
point. Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
really good point. Hmm. Cool.
Yeah.
Well, there you have it. Why life is always unfair and what to do about it. If you have any ideas for episodes you want to hear from us, we are all ears, or at least four of them, two for me, two for Danny. And
Good
you
math.
can, yeah, you can comment down in the YouTube videos, or you can email us. The email's in the show notes wherever you get your podcasts. And until next time, this is the Existential Stoic Podcast. I'm Randy. That's Danny. I'll see you later, Danny.
Later, Randy.